a motto, it is a strong belief, and no conversation about the time of transformation is complete without putting the focus on the Indian Army. We are pleased and privileged to have with us today the Chief of Army Staff, General Manoj Pande. General Pande is the first Engineer Corps officer to rise to the very top of the Indian Army. The guardian of India's territorial integrity, General Pande commanded an engineer regiment during Operation Parakram in the sensitive Palanwala sector of Jammu and Kashmir in the standoff between Indian and Pakistani forces in 2001. In his 4 decades of distinguished military career, he has tenanted important and challenging appointments in different operational environments, including in the Western Theatre, an infantry brigade along the line of control, a mountain division in the high-altitude area of Western Ladakh, and a command of a corps deployed along the LAC. For you too, sir, we have a very special image taken, and there it is. General Pande with his troops in the forward area, a picture that personifies his commitment to empowering soldiers with enhanced fighting capabilities at the turn of the era. We also have a short audiovisual that we'd like to share with you.
राष्ट्र के प्रहरी भी, राष्ट्र निर्माण के भागीदार भी, रग रग में दौड़ता जिसके देश प्रेम का जज्बा भी, प्रबल, शक्तिशाली और तत्पर, वो भारतीय सेना अब है परिवर्तन के पथ पर।
Ladies and gentlemen, General Manoj Pande, PVSM, AVSM, VSM, ADC. In his 4 decades of distinguished military career, he has tenanted important and challenging command and staff appointments in different operational environments, which include command of an engineer brigade in the Western Theatre, as part of Strike Corps, an infantry brigade along the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir, a mountain division in the high altitude area of Western Ladakh, and command of a corps deployed along the line of actual control in counterinsurgency operations area of Eastern Command. His staff exposures include Brigade Major of a mountain brigade in Northeast, Assistant Military Secretary in Military Secretary's branch, Colonel Q of a mountain division in high altitude area, and Brigadier General Staff Operations at Headquarter Eastern Command. The General Officer has served as Chief Engineer in the United Nations Mission in Ethiopia and Eritrea. He has also tenanted the appointments of Additional Director General in the Military Operations Directorate at Army Headquarters, Chief of Staff Headquarters Southern Command and Director General Discipline, Ceremonial and Welfare in the Army Headquarters. He was Commander-in-Chief Andaman and Nicobar Command from June 2020 to May 2021 and General Officer Commanding-in-Chief Eastern Command from June 2021 to January 2022. I request Abhishek Kapoor to come along with Chief of Army Staff to the stage for a conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Chief of Army Staff of the Indian Army.
Thank you so much, General Pande, sir.
Thank you, Abhishek,
for gracing the occasion. We are honored, we are privileged, and I've been waiting for long to have this moment when, with the chief by my side, I can mention that I was studied in an army school. And one anecdote to begin with, I was in class 8th or 9th, and we were breaking for Dashera, 10 days. Everyone looks forward to those breaks. On the last day, just 3-4 hours before the school breaks, My history teacher, Brigadier Nanda's wife at that time, she said, I want one Ravan there so that we can have that ceremony of lighting the Ravan. And in 3 hours flat, we students, 20 students in class, got a Ravan ready there, went to the shrubs, got the wood, did some SUPW work and got the Ravan ready, and in 3 hours flat, we had our principal colonel education lighting the Ravan. So that's what Army does perhaps to you in terms of execution skills, in terms of this can-do spirit, in a very time-bound manner. We welcome, sir. I wanted that anecdote, and let's begin with you, sir. First engineer from the engineering corps, actually, to be the Chief of Army Staff. If you could just begin by explaining to us what this really means for the Indian Army and how it impacts where we are going.
Right. Thank you, Abhishek. It's an honor for me to be coming here and talking to you on behalf of the Indian Army. And let me start by saying that the Indian Army is a very fair, transparent, and an equitable organization. And in the context of what you just asked, I think it provides opportunities to officers from all arms to rise up to the top position. Also, as you go along, our senior leadership gets trained, gets orientated to various facets of war fighting, be it in the fields of intelligence, operations, operational logistics, administrations, and the rest. So to that extent, my being from the Corps of Engineers is only so much or that much important. So I leave it there.
Right. But a lot of stuff. One is the soldier, and the other is the machine. A lot is transforming. As we look forward to 2047, India's 100 years of independence, what's really changing? What's really transforming? For example, when I look back to headlines over the last 6 months, we have seen a lot of AI getting into Indian Army, a lot of tech getting into Indian Army, 3D printing bungalows, and that getting reflected in war machine. How are we transforming as a force that takes care of India's security?
So you're right. We have taken a number of transformation initiatives so that we become more modern, become more technology-driven, self-reliant, and a battle-worthy force to be able to not only carry out our mandate more effectively, but also to be able to meet future security challenges in a much effective manner. Now, the drivers for this change or this transformation, I would say, are fourfold. One is the unprecedented changes that are taking place in the geostrategic landscape. Second is the changing character of war itself. Third is the limitless potential of disruptive technologies. And the fourth are the changes that are taking place in the socio-economic sphere. So these are the drivers for change. As far as we are concerned, we have laid down 5 key domains in which the transformation would happen in the future. And briefly, I'll just spell them out. First is, of course, force restructuring and optimization so that you become more agile. You look at certain legacy establishments, units, either you modify them or if they are no longer relevant, you do away with them. Second is infusion of technology and modernization, which I feel is equally important. Third domain is the systems, processes, and functions. And that is where automation, digitization, we want to bring in so that, and the aim is your operational, administrative, and logistic efficiency is that much enhanced. The fourth domain is in the realms of human resource management, and that is where the new HR management philosophy or the Agnipath or the Agniveer comes into play, and maybe we can talk of it a little later more. And the last and equally important is the aspect of jointness and integration, because we firmly believe that as you go forward, it is all the 3 services need to work together to leverage each other's potential and to maximize operational outcomes. Now, we've laid down a very clear roadmap to achieve objectives with clearly defined deliverables in a time-bound manner. And as some of you would know, the year 2023, we have declared it as a year of transformation. Now, while all this is happening, we are also conscious of our permanent commitments along our borders. So it is extremely important that operational readiness we maintain of a very high order at all times, notwithstanding that the transformation we undertake.
So I'll draw two questions out of this. One, how would the future soldier look like? You say a lot of human resource transformation is happening. You mentioned Agniveers. We would be inducting them, I believe, very soon. For example, how younger the army would be, and how the soldier of 2047 would look like.
Right, so the new HR management philosophy or the Agnipath scheme, which I just alluded to, is a step towards meeting this requirement. Now, this is a transformative reform which will bring about, or which has brought about, a paradigm shift or change in the way we are managing our human resource. And the benefits of this scheme are manifold, and I don't have to repeat it here, but largely what it will help us is to bring a much youthful profile for the Indian Army. You will have more technologically adept youth joining the military. The technological threshold will be much better. You will also have a more fitter army. So the availability of soldiers in combat frontline units will increase. You will also have the soldiers at the end of their 4-year term, when they move out, they'll carry a unique resume. They will imbibe all the values and the rest of the qualities that the military stands for. So their contribution to the society at large and to the nation will again be significant. So this is how we look at a future soldier who is not only fit, physically fit, but also technologically adept.
So, quick comment before I move to my next question. This criticism that was there about Agniveers and the Agnipath scheme, has it been taken care of after the way the scheme has panned out over the last 6 months?
Yes, indeed. And within the military, just as now I think outside, there is a lot of positivity, there is a lot of energy. We want this to work, and we are very certain that at the end of 4 years, when we will actually start seeing the results, it is going to be a win-win situation, not only for the military, but for the society and the country overall. There are a number of changes or certain key issues which we need to pay attention to, which we are currently doing, because I think the implementation is the key here. And one of the issues that we are looking at is the current duration for which you train a new soldier or a recruit.
I was actually coming to that. So you mentioned the character of war is changing.
Yes.
We are seeing a war panning out in Europe. That's the only perhaps full-scale war we are seeing in front of us. And there are lessons, there are takeaways for the armies around the world and for Indian Army as well. So if you can just give a peep of what lessons we are drawing, for example, from the Europe war, and how it's going to affect or transform Indian war philosophy going forward, looking ahead.
So in the context of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, I believe there are very profound lessons for us, both or in the strategic domain, at the operational level, as also at the tactical level. But what is important for us is to see their relevance in our context and then move forward. One of the important lessons at the strategic level is, I think it has reaffirmed the relevance of hard power. It has shown us that where national interests are involved, countries will not hesitate to go to war. Secondly, I think land will always remain a decisive domain of warfare, especially where there are contested borders, disputed borders, just as in our case. The notion of victory will always remain land-centric. So that is the second important thing. As far as the operations themselves are concerned, it is no longer going to be only the kinetic operations or pure fighting as we know. We already have multi-domain operations, So the importance of cyber, space, electronic warfare, or for that matter, influence operations, I think this is going to gain more salience as we move forward. So we'll have to prepare ourselves, build our capacities to be able to successfully prosecute operation across these multiple domains that I mentioned, and be also ready to fight across the entire spectrum. It has also shown us that there is a gray zone, so we need to build, develop our gray zone capabilities. And then there are some lessons in terms of duration. So there was this hypothesis that future wars are going to be short. I think this has proved that that is perhaps a misplaced notion. So if the wars are going to be long, maybe long drawn, then you need to be self-reliant, you need to have your secure supply chains and the rest. And that is where I think this aspect of Atmanirbharta comes in. Besides, there are lessons at the tactical level in terms of a soldier having to be multi-skilled, the aspect of citizen warrior and its importance, small team operations, and relevance of certain combat platforms, let us say armor, artillery, long-range weapons, etc. So these are some of the lessons I think we need to take home.
So you said, taking care of land is integral, remains integral. Two, you said, as we are seeing also in the case of Europe war in Ukraine and in our ongoing standoff in Ladakh, holding for a long time. It's not a short duration war or a standoff. We have to have endurance.
Yes.
So in the context of the ongoing standoff, for example, and of course the Ukraine war, what changes are happening which should make us feel confident that we are taken care of?
So I would say it's a mix of a number of things. And first is modernization and infusion of technology. Because as I mentioned, these days you have disruptive technologies whose potential is limitless. So while there may be legacy systems with us, we need to get a right balance between the weapon systems we already have and what kind of technology or the niche or disruptive technologies we need to bring in. So this balance has got to be right. And second is also we have within our country a very bright young constituency of young minds. So we need to see as to how we can leverage this to good advantage. And then to be able to build our own weapon systems, other warlike materials, equipment, both in terms of what you want to bring them new, as well as the sustenance.
So how much of it is Atmanirbhar as of now, and going forward, how much of it would be Atmanirbhar in terms of being indigenous, say about 2 decades from now?
So I think being self-reliant or being Atmanirbhar, especially in terms of meeting our defense or security requirements, I think nowadays is a strategic imperative. And there are a number of steps that have been taken. I essentially believe that there are 4 aspects to building a good defense manufacturing ecosystem. And one is, of course, resource allocation. Second is enabling government policies. Third is competitiveness. And fourth is creating the demand. In all this, we as the services, I think, can be facilitators of government policy and creating the right demand. We also need to look at as to how do you handhold the industry, especially the young or the small companies, startups, even the MSME segment. And towards that, we have taken a number of measures. So we have gone for what we refer to as a spiral development. So when you look at equipment, you may not get the ideal thing that you require in the first go, but you can, over a period of time, scale up the requirements. We are encouraging or reducing the testing and trial procedures so that making it much simpler for the industry. We are encouraging industry representatives to visit forward areas so they can first-hand see what the requirements are. We are also engaging with the academia and the other technical institutes in the country. We have already set up Indian Army cells in IIT Delhi, We'll soon do it in ISC Bangalore, IIT Kanpur. So that's again a positive step. And we have created regional technology nodes, which will be the hubs, so that you have a point of contact, and they are the ones who will facilitate our interaction with the industry.
So you also mentioned jointmanship and your experience from Andaman Nicobar. How far are we from that becoming, or that getting actualized on the ground in terms of theaterization, for example? How far are we from that project and from taking the benefits out of that scheme of defense arrangement?
Right, so in terms of jointness and integration, this is something which has already happened. Perhaps we need to do more. And we have identified areas as to where we can further promote jointness, better understanding of each other or the others or the sister service in terms of their work culture, their systems, their processes, learn from each other. So that is how we will promote jointness. In terms of integration, I'm referring to integration of systems or functions. So how can you better integrate your communication systems, your logistic systems? How can you better integrate your training, regimes? All with the aim of, again, synergizing and maximize the potential of all the three services. And that is what we are looking at as we move forward. We've got a very clear roadmap in mind, and I think we are moving in the right direction.
Right, sir. One question, just this general viewer curiosity, because we kept hearing about it often, about this two-front war situation. Over the last couple of years, the way the situation has evolved, do we still face that situation, or no? We are not going to have a two-front war situation anymore, given whatever is happening, for example, on the western border?
Right. While the attempt would be across all domains to avoid a two-front situation, but I believe we still need to be prepared. Should that situation arise, then how do you employ, how do you utilize your resources? And that is what currently we are looking at. And we have plans in place, depending on which is the primary front and the secondary front. And that is a function of various factors. So yes, in terms of our preparedness levels, we will continue to be prepared to fight a two-front war, if you like.
My final question, sir, before we let you go. Tremendous amount of work happening in terms of taking care of our infrastructure along the borders, along the east, along the west. Tremendous amount of road building, for example, this latest Vibrant Villages program. You think we are moving, of course we are moving in the right direction, but are we moving at the right pace and everything is taken care of?
In this context, what we normally hear is the kind of infrastructure development and the pace at which it is taking on the other side or across our borders. But let me assure you, on our own side, within the last 8 to 10 years, a lot of impetus has been given towards border infrastructure development, and we have made significant strides, be it in terms of improving our road or surface connectivity, be it in terms of constructing more tunnels, more advanced landing grounds, more helipads. And when you look at infrastructure, it is not only this, but also the communication infrastructure. So the communication connectivity in forward areas has improved manifold. The power infrastructure, so your electricity, etc., is again the reach, I would say, in the last 8 to 10 years, as we have made significant stride. But yes, more needs to be done, and we are proactively engaging with all stakeholders. And by this I mean the state governments, various other departments here in the central government, as well as the local people. So I'm very hopeful that as far as the infrastructure development goes, I think we are on the right track.
Thank you so much, sir. Between the government and the Forge, we are safe, secure in this country. And a big round of applause for the Chief of Army Staff, General Manoj Pande. Thank you so much, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next honorable speaker is Air Chief Marshal Our next honored guest is Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary, PVSM, AVSM, VM, ADC, Chief of Air Staff. The Air Chief Marshal has commanded a frontline fighter squadron and 2 important fighter bases. Some of his notable assignments include Assistant Chief of the Air Staff, Air Defense, Assistant Chief of the Air Staff, Personnel Officers, and Deputy Chief of the Air Staff, where he spearheaded several major procurement cases for the IAF. He later was Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief of Western Air Command and Vice Chief of the Air Staff before taking over as Chief of the Air Staff on 30th September 21.
Ladies and gentlemen, the future of war is a hybrid. We've got with us the Chief of Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Vikram Chaudhary. As I mentioned, the future of war is a hybrid. Traditional domains of war fighting today merge with evolving technologies. To cater to these evolving threats, the Indian Air Force is adapting rapidly, and in the cockpit to oversee it all is the Chief of Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Vikram Chaudhary. This image that you see on the screen of Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary flying the indigenous LCA Tejas truly encapsulates a new Made in India era for the Indian Air Force under his command. Commissioned into the fighter stream of the Indian Air Force on the 29th of December 1982, Air Chief Marshal Chaudhary has over 3,800 flight hours, has been a pioneering member of the Indian Air Force's Surya Kiran aerobatic display team, and was in active service during Operation Meghdut, the operation that ensured India's presence on the Siachen Glacier. I'd like to now invite Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary to address us on the theme, Time of Transformation, the Sky is Ours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Rini, for that kind introduction. And thank you very much for inviting me to deliver the summit keynote address and talk about the trajectory of the nation in the next 25 years, and in the Indian Air Force in particular. Sorry, excuse me. Let me begin by what the Prime Minister had quoted just a few days ago. I need to read this. He said, "We have less time, but immense capabilities. We have difficult targets, but great courage. We have the goal to climb the mountains, but we will transcend even the skies." Very appropriate for today's theme. Let me begin by taking you all back as a flashback to 25 years prior to this day. 1998, I was a young pilot in a frontline combat squadron. But where were we as a nation in 1998? The Pokhran blasts had just taken place. India, as a country, was badly sanctioned. Mobile connectivity was a distant dream. All of us were still using dial-up telephones. I'm sure most of you would have still relied on the good old inland letters and postcards to communicate with each other. The PSLV rockets were just launched a few years prior to that.